Lory Bedikian reads from her collection, The Book of Lamenting, winner of the 2010 Philip Levine Prize for Poetry.
Writing this book, Adrienne Rich's words were with me all the time. You guys know, everybody knows Adrienne Rich, right? We lost her, unfortunately, but we were so lucky to have her for so long. And from her title poem, Diving into the Wreck, from her book, Diving into the Wreck, she says, I came to explore the wreck. The words are purposes, the words are maps. I came to see the damage that was done and the treasures that prevail. It's a bad idea to quote a great poet when you're reading your own poetry, but anyway, that stayed with me for so many years, and I thought, yeah, I'm going to just, dive into the wreck. I'm just going to dive into the wreck of my life, of my ancestry, of the lives of others, and just kind of see what comes out of it. So that always stayed with me while writing the book. At my mother's dresser. I lift my 5-year-old body on the chair to watch her fingers lift blush powder, burnt rose to her face. The strokes seem counted out, maybe 20 brushes on each cheekbone. In the mirror, I mimic her, but she doesn't smile and instead dabs perfume on her wrists and neck, combs back her stiff chestnut hair cut short above the ear. A bird's nest, a crown, adjusts an opalescent button in the silk blouse's eye, the stockings already torn. Without a word, sigh, and haste, she chooses large red faux bijou beads to hide the pale olive of her skin. I know these things make her stand apart from the others, PTA mothers, grocery clerks, the women in afternoon dramas. I will grow to resemble her. Our eyebrows too dark, 2 brush strokes of rain clouds, our noses edged pyramids, always causing a double look, a glance. She rubs cream under the eyes' half moons, taupe for the lids. To match her nails, another burnt hue of red. She fumbles for the final touch on her mouth. She needs to hurry before they arrive. The relatives who have been missing for years. Names mentioned, tossed photos in a shoebox, phone calls cut short. People she hated to leave behind in Syria, while she and my father made the trek to the States. As she swirls lipstick toward her mouth, one hand smooths the color on as the other dabs the crying that's begun. She does this without a change of face. She does this as if it's part of dressing, of carrying on. Thank you. So, I grew up in Northern California, as Larry mentioned, Cupertino, California. Good old Cupertino. And, where the suburbs reigned, everything was a suburb. You try to get out of the suburb, you run into another suburb, one of those things. And during my, I got an MFA in Oregon, and during my MFA with Dorian Lux, she had us keep a journal. And she said, just write about anything, write any ideas that come to your mind, anything. So one day I'm like, I have no ideas for a poem. All I know is I hate my neighbors. They're driving me crazy. I'm trying to study, and they're in their driveway, and they're doing this drum circle, and they won't stop, and the earplugs won't, drown it out, blah, blah, blah. And I just wrote how much I hated driveways, and how I'm just so sick of driving. And I just went on, and she just, in the margin, very delicately, with so much grace, just said, Lory, I think you need to write a poem about driveways. And then I thought, okay. So I tried it. And I thought, oh, it's going to be angry, bitter, whatever. I'm going to just be ranting again and again. And, first draft, second draft. Before I knew it, I found out I wasn't angry. I guess I was feeling a lot of other things, but it wasn't really anger. And I thought, there it is again, that investigation into the wreck sort of thing. Thanks, Adrienne, for giving me that little way into things. So anyway, and here's the poem. Thanks, Dorian. Driveways. I never understood the appeal of it. Sofa pushed to one side of the concrete rectangle, dented garbage cans on the other, a pistachio-colored carport over the top. We could hear the growl of motorcycles as they crept back onto sidewalks until their silver bodies blurred, and then a tunnel of noise. 12, content with a borrowed bike, I rode up and down blocks observing the long tongues of asphalt or white gray stone stretched into the runways of our suburban bungalows. I never made sense of parked boats covered with blue tarps, secured from some imaginary wind, dry except for the occasional sprinkler teasing its starboard side. The way people haggled on these stretches, washed their oil-stained squares clean with soap, took a smoke on a beach chair, or simply stood, hands on hips, staring toward nothing, thinking of a time long since past, baffled me. The roads deserted, now and then a pickup truck buzzing by, the mailman's blue bag flashing over the concrete's bare back. Children used them best. Cracks were rivers, their tricycles trains, or the slab became an island, a basketball court, a jungle, or long-awaited classroom. It was the same square on which they left for college, for marriage, and for some reason, and if the reasons weren't clear, other driveways buzzed with the possibilities. And some families fought on them. Boxing rings with someone on the lower corner, ready to exit to sidewalk to car, leaving but never for good. The one standing on the upper side left to garden, pulling weeds like hair, raking as if they'd find an X somewhere, finally revealing how to get out of this place. Front yard abandoned. After dusk, 2 headlights dragged through the dark below plum trees. Driveways were our altars, where we could bless and curse what we became. I rode home, too small to know that something makes us want to see the world from this vantage point, from ground hardened over earth, blaring with noonday sun. A dead flag under our feet, rolled out to claim a plot of land, feeling the movement of years upon it, hand over the eyes, calling to the window above. I'd like to read a poem about the years that we lived in Van Nuys. And Khalil Gibran, the Lebanese American, okay, people are nodding, that's fabulous. In The Prophet, he writes about how, again, it's sort of like the Adrian Rich vibe, where he writes about how the depth of your sorrow is the depth of your happiness. If you can carve out a place for your sorrow, whatever amount that you carved out, once you empty it out, you can fill that same amount of space with happiness. So I always make the joke, that's why I wrote the book of Lamenting, so I could just be a really happy person. So there it is. So I'd like to read this poem reflecting back on those years in Van Nuys, California. Covello Drive. In the suburbs, in the hot valley of Southern California, in a home made of stucco with clanging dishes echoing in the hollow walls, the days drove themselves to sleep. The wire fences held the yards of ivy from overgrowing, from winding themselves around the rusted cars, fiberglass carports, angry pit bulls, the smog in its infancy, flies foraging rotted fruit on the pavement. This was Van Nuys in the 70s, and this is part of what I remember. My father waited to see the fig tree grow, waited to see his 3 children eat dinner in peace. My brother shot basketballs through hoops, shouts turned into fists and feet, an uproar, a slamming of doors swallowed by a street sweeping machine. Like tangled roots, they fought. Something in our house always broke, behind a muffled voice, a glass, a window. Father was always the last to know of the bruises and the threats. His life had turned into mornings of worn-out name tags. Father wondered if the other kids on our block also split hinges in half. All night he stared out toward that fig tree, waited to see what portions would grow, wondering what would break. Beyond the mouth. On the back of every tongue in my family, there is a dove that lives and dies. At night, when my aunts and uncles sleep, the birds comb their feathers, sharpen beaks. They are carriers not only of the olive branch, but the rest of our histories too. As from the ark, we came in twos with tired eyes from Lebanon, Syria, the outskirts of Armenia, anywhere where safety said its final prayers and died. Like every simile ever written, the doves on our tongues are tired and misread. Dinners begin with mounds of bread, dialogues piled between the older men. Near our dark throats, the quiet birds lurk to watch meals descend, take phrases that didn't reach the truth and spin them into nests. Now and then, we spit them out in shapes of seeds, olive pits, spines of fish. The men never watch what enters past their teeth. They never, what leaves their moving lips, and the doves know this. The women shut their mouths when they don't approve of the squawking laughs. There is a saying, or at least there should be, that if one doesn't believe what is said or true on the back of the tongue, they can ask the dove, and it will chirp the ugliness or the pitted truth of how we choke on what we hide. I'll close with the title poem of the book, and I like to tell people this. I don't know why I do it. It doesn't really relate to the poem, but I want to say it anyway. I love going on road trips. I think what it is most of all is the nature of driving, that sort of meditative quality of it, and how the landscape changes and the topography, and the land in this country is just so beautiful. And the more you drive, the more you realize, I'm nothing. I am nothing. Look at this place. Look at the world. We have such a beautiful earth, and right, everybody's nodding, and I feel like we should hug. But it's such a beautiful, beautiful world and beautiful earth, and so I love that nature of driving. And so this poem is sort of about noticing things, but at the same time realizing that, whether we like it or not, we can never really escape ourselves. Things always seem to just sort of pop up. It's like that flower that you don't expect to grow out of the strangest place, that sort of thing. Anyway, so this book is dedicated to the memory of my grandmother, Siona Badian, a woman who didn't speak any English but got along okay and lived to be about 100. So, God bless you, Grandma. The Book of Lamenting begins on edges of highways, where the sun raises its swollen belly, grasses outgrow themselves, vineyards wither their nerves. The sun cracks the dashboard, slithers between rows of eucalyptus, juniper, rolls along the wheels of trucks. Past crows that caw, pod atop railroad crossings, the engine cranks its monotonous pulse, distracts me from posted signs, the yellow snake that guides me along. This is where I find reasons to question the living. My father's face held in his hands, his brows etched in the stained glass of the missions. My mother's sacrifice dwelling in deserted turnpikes, her eyes gazing from overgrown orchards. Trees disappear. Dried brush crumbles into camel's fur. In the distance, no horizon, but tumbleweed large as sheep. This is where I am when the world has closed its ears. Alongside rusted tractors, abandoned fruit stands, roaming for hours. Nothing but barbed wire fences, nothing but the smells of harvest and gasoline. The road matters more than the earth, more than those on the road. It turns into a spine ladder of teeth and bone. In the passenger seat, my grandmother's ghost holds a palm full of seeds, scatters them skyward for the crows to eat. All of it behind us now. She tells me not to tangle my nerves, not to stop the creed of the open road. Nothing that runs can stay the same. Thank you.